Welcome to McChats Live here on youtube.com/Mike McGTV, the home of McGTV. And I am your host, Mike McG. And here with me again to talk about a interesting movie is Mr. Dan Baugher from Three Geeks Podcast over at youtube.com/Three Geeks Network. And on Twitter, what's your guys' Twitter handle again? I'm never good at Twitter handles.
Oh, don't ask me, man. I don't know how Twitter works.
Three Geeks Podcast, I believe, is the Twitter handle. So check them out there and tweet them, retweet them. If they ever have a poll online to see like what movies we should tackle next on their website, vote with your hearts and minds.
Yes, please don't make us watch Swamp Thing again.
Yeah, go check out the latest Frady Geeks for context on that. The context being that we watched Swamp Thing and regretted it. But talking about a movie that I kind of regretted watching all the way through. I'd heard about it. I'd seen a couple people do reviews on it before, but I actually own a VHS copy of this movie, which it's out of print on VHS and never had a DVD release, so it's kind of a rarity. So I guess I'm happy that that's something in my collection.
Yeah, you don't really want to chase this thing down anyway.
You can find it online if you're really that curious, but even then, don't try to chase it down. I'm recommending right off the bat. It's the 1989 biopic about John Belushi called Wired, starring Michael Chiklis. It was one of his first big roles, right?
This was his first like movie role.
Mm-hmm. He was like 25, I think, when he went in for the or when he got the part and so forth. And man, what a monumental task to kind of start your career on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give Chiklis props. I mean, that's the one good thing about this movie is that Chiklis really tries.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely. He and that's the thing, is like he took on this role, and I'm sure from the get-go was nervous as hell about being blackballed, about being kind of ostracized from the acting community or from, Hollywood in a way, taking on this role, but also given the context that the role plays in the movie too. But I mean, I'm glad that he went on to get more work and get better work too, because he really, like you said, there's many things that are very wrong with this movie, and we'll talk about them, sure. But his portrayal of Belushi is really well done.
I mean, with what he had to work with, yeah.
Yeah, to the point that I believe in like a later interview, like Belushi's wife, Judith, actually said like, listen, he like basically said, yeah, he is the one good thing that came out of that movie, because you know what? He's trying, and it's not his fault the material is so bad.
Yeah, and it's not like, they just got him, and he's like the one guy that would do it. I mean, I forget the number, but there was at least 100 people up for the role, and he got called back 4 times for it.
Yeah.
So there was competition for the role.
So to kind of get into more of the production too, aside from just Chiklis, this was, I use the term based off of very loosely here, because this is based off of the tell-all book that Bob Woodward, who you might remember from such famous scandals as Watergate, he wrote following Belushi's death, with, I guess, at first with some approval from people close to Belushi, but when it came out as more of like a sensationalist, like expose on his drug addiction and his lifestyle, that a lot of people close to Belushi really started boycotting the book, let alone the movie.
Well, it took him the book came out in 1984, so it took him 9 years to get the movie out.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, from 1982. Yeah, I mean, and the book published in 1984, and from the get-go, like people like Belushi's widow, like retroactively thought ill of it after the fact, like being like, "Oh, is that what you were trying to actually publish or trying to get out there?"
Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
it seems like he added a lot of stuff. I mean, to the book, and then I mean he worked as an advisor for the film, and in the film, I mean Belushi's wife. I mean Woodward is a character in this, and there's a part where they're walking on the beach, and she, you know, Judith says, "I want people to see him as he was, the drugs and more," in the film, when the real Judith was actually blackballing the film.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Like Judith was blackballing it. Aykroyd publicly, like he was like, "I got witches working on this." Like he's got to put a hex on the film. And also he got the guy who plays Woodward in the movie, J.T. Walsh, who I believe wasn't he in Blade Runner?
I don't know.
Was he? I'm okay. I obviously did
Hold
my
on,
research.
I gotta look
I'll
this
do
up
it.
now.
I'll do some research on this end for once. But I believe like he plays Woodward in the film, and then he was in Loose Cannons for like a second until Aykroyd was like, "Nope, get rid of him," and that cost him like $125,000 of the budget to replace J.T. Walsh with someone else. Nope, I'm sorry, he wasn't in Blade Runner. My mistake.
Okay.
He's got a very Blade Runner-ish face, I guess. But yeah, like everyone from the get-go was so adamantly kind of against this portrayal, and with good reason, I feel. Shall we get into some of the batshit?
Yeah, let's say that Chickless is the best part of the film and get that over with, and then we can just go into maiming it.
Yes, yes, I agree. Chickless okay, here's the deal. Chickless is a fine actor, and in the scenes where he's just required to play John Belushi as John Belushi the performer, I feel those are like the gems of the film. Like there's only one or two of them. Basically, it's the Blues Brothers segments that I really enjoyed, but that's just because they're just recreating the Blues Brothers gig essentially. But
yeah, like when Chickless is actually called on to act, I think is the cool part. Not like reenact like crappy, pseudo SNL skits because they couldn't get the rights for Belushi's real skits. But when he's able to actually like be that character outside of the SNL thing, I think is where he shines.
Yeah. I mean, like I was saying, he still does a good job. I guess it was just those moments because of the fact that I just knew Chickless is a good actor well enough on his own that those scenes do he is the most likable part of those scenes. Like when he's in the sand, buried in the sand, and he's asking Judith to marry him. Yeah. Like I really do like that scene quite a bit. It's not really the standout part of the movie for me at all. As hard as it is to believe, there's not a lot of standout moments in this movie, but
well, there's a lot of standout moments. They're just not good.
Yeah, for different reasons entirely, there's standout moments. But that scene with him and Judith is really nice. I do like kind of the intensity he brings to Belushi when he is kind of struggling with the addiction or struggling with his issues. Like he's not soft soaping it.
Oh no. No, and he does. I mean, he shows a lot of range in this for his first film. I mean, not bad. What he had to work with, bad.
Like guardian angel taxi cab drivers.
Yeah, let's just, I guess, start with a synopsis. I guess.
Holy God, I don't. The synopsis. The synopsis is you flash back to, like you were saying, pseudo, almost not really that accurate SNL recreations and flashbacks to Belushi's private life, all the while interlaced with him and this cab driver named Angel. But in the credits, Ray Sharkey, who plays the cab driver, is credited as being called Velasquez, even though no one ever calls him that in the movie. And he's basically doing like the ghost of, it's everything. It's a Wonderful Life. It's Ghost of Christmas Past, Present, and Future. He's basically his guardian angel and guide in the afterlife, as he's just basically showing Belushi how much he fucked up in real life or in his living existence, showing him in the afterlife. And it's like punishing the ghost of Belushi in a way.
Yeah, since you brought up the Christmas Carol and It's a Wonderful Life. See, those stories work because the protagonist isn't already dead.
Yep.
So they can go back and like change shit and be like, maybe my life isn't so bad anyway. Yeah, this doesn't work because he's dead. In fact, there's a scene where he crawls out of his own body bag.
It's after eating a donut and belching.
Yeah.
And he runs out of the morgue naked in a sheet.
and that happy dancing morgue attendant isn't there anymore.
The dude was like rapping about tits and everything like that.
Yeah, he's just like pushing bodies down the thing. It's like, oh, dude, really? but yeah, I mean, this doesn't work because he's already dead, so we can't change anything.
Yep.
And we'll get to the monologue that Woodward gets at the end, but it's just kind of like an the whole plot is futile because there's no point in any of it.
There's no arc to this story at all. Like, it's just him and Angel going around, and he's like, it takes forever for Belushi to be like, what's going on? What's happening? And Angel keeps just repeating the same like line. It's like, you fucked up and you're dead. Like, that's basically the bulk of their conversations, is that Belushi will be like, I don't understand why this is happening. And Angel will be like, because you fucked up and you're dead. And rinse and repeat. And then it'll cut to, honestly, it cuts to flashbacks and those sketches that honestly could have gone anywhere in the movie. Like, there's no sense of like, okay, this is where he gets his start and this is how he's progressing and progressing and progressing. I mean, towards the end, yeah, it's going to end with his death essentially. But up until that point, like, it'll go to when he's in the middle of Saturday Night Live, or then it'll go to him marrying Judith, or then it'll go to his comedy roots where his coach is just yelling at him. Like, there's no reasoning behind why any of that's happening in that order, or why even show us that.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much have to agree with you, except for the last scene when he's dying, and like Woodward is like having his way with him.
Yeah.
Okay, so get this, Belushi is just like laying in bed, and he's just like, and not having his way in even a happy way for him way, I guess. But yeah, like, Belushi's like laying in bed, and he's slowly dying because he OD'd on heroin. And Woodward comes over, and he's like, why did you do this to yourself, John? Look what you did. Why? And like, the dude's dying in bed, and it's just like, this is the worst like death scene ever. I mean, I would punch every one of the crew for that scene if I could.
Why the needle, John? You hate needles.
Yeah, it's just it like turns into a weird drug PSA at the end.
Yeah, it talks down. It talks down a lot to this dead man.
Like, he's already dead. It's not like like an intervention when you go in there and you can try to say a bunch of like mean shit to shock him into not doing it anymore.
Yeah, it's a little late for that.
He's dead. He's dying. I mean, and Woodward knows this because he has somehow like prognosticated this whole thing by walking into like the room, years after Belushi died. And
that intro was hilarious because like the lady's like showing him around the rooms and everything. Like,
yeah,
this is where he died. Here's the kitchen. Here's the living room. I'm like, are we getting this place appraised? What the hell's going on?
and the dude playing Woodward for his part is like writing everything down in a notebook. I mean, he goes into the bathroom, shifts a painting around, and then writes something. It's like, what are you writing there? Yeah,
there's that picture. There's like that portrait in the bathroom, and he's like, scribbles notes. I'm like, what the hell does that have to do with anything? And I gotta say, when talking about that last scene between dying dead Belushi and Woodward, where he intros and tries to jump scare him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, It's like, was this your plan all along, Woodward? I'm out of the picture, so now you're gonna snake it to my widow, or what? I'm like, what? Because here's the whole thing: if it wasn't for the fact that I went into this movie knowing that this is quote unquote based on a true story, aside from certain things like the guardian angel aspect, that you're talking to a dead guy,
or him walking around after he's dead,
or walking around after he's dead. When they have that first scene with like Woodward and Judith kind of talking about like how she wants him to, I want to get the story out there. Like, if I didn't know that this was just going to be following like whatever they interpret as facts, if this was any other movie, I would have been like, oh, they're going to end up together. This is what you expect in all those thrillers where the husband died mysteriously and she looks for someone to unravel the mystery. And so when he says that, I'm like, yeah, I guess I could have seen that in another version of this movie. I'm not going to say a lesser movie because this can't get any lesser.
And there is no mystery. It's not like, this is 8mm and we're sending, Nick Cage out to see if the chick's really dead. I mean, they know John Belushi's dead. They know how he died.
I know. He goes around interviewing everyone like it's Citizen Kane and stuff, and then
what's Rosebud?
It's like, what's Rosebud? But except it's a stupider question that we all know the answer to. Is like, why do you think he died? And of all the people who gives the stupidest answer, it is Dan Aykroyd, or the guy playing Dan Aykroyd in this movie, who's like, oh, it was 3 packs of cigarettes a day that did it. I mean, he's trying to be, I guess, funny and dry humor, maybe, to cope with the loss of his friend. I don't know. Who knows if that interaction actually happened with Aykroyd? But it's just like, this is so idiotic. And then to trump that idiocy, you have John Belushi's spirit crash landing from up above, because apparently they couldn't get his coffin to fit in a plane, so they just put him in the body bag and buckled him up in the private jet.
Yeah, I don't even know what the hell was happening in that whole thing. I mean, they're trying to shove a coffin into like a small jet. And they're like, well, you can't fit in the cargo, so they just take the body bag and they put it in a seat just to get the gag of him falling out of the body bag and into the bar where Woodward is trying to get shit on him from the dude playing Dan Aykroyd, who looks like Kevin Nealon, by the way, more than Dan Aykroyd.
Who looks like Kevin Nealon and talks like, I don't know what his impression is of Aykroyd but there's times when he's very Jimmy Stewart-ish.
Yeah, there's one thing that really pissed me off about. Hold on, let me find it here somewhere.
Dan has several notes.
yes. Okay, the part where they're on the beach and Dan Aykroyd comes up with a cassette tape and he's like, "You got to listen to this. This is the best heavy metal."
Yeah,
and he puts it in and it plays The Ventures. It would make me very sad if the real Dan Aykroyd thought The Ventures was heavy metal.
Well, dude, I don't know. I can't speak. Aykroyd has been kind of out there every once in a while, so
yeah.
He thinks we won't be able to establish formal contact with alien life after 9/11.
That's fine, I guess.
Okay, I guess.
But, I mean, because that's just like weird. I mean, way out there. I mean, being able to classify your rock and roll should be a relatively solid venture,
And further compounded by the fact that scene's just stupid and really weak foreshadowing.
Yeah.
To something that we already know happens. Just imagine if they're playing this at your funeral and you got all the mourners and stuff, and then you lay this track on them. And I'm like, I get it, Dan. And was that supposed to be Aykroyd like leading the processional?
I don't know, because at that point, all I have in my notes is that we now because I think interrupt this funeral with a Sappy Chevy commercial.
Yeah, it was like a Sappy Chevy commercial with this like processional of the limos and stuff like that, the hearse, and then leading the charge is a lone motorcycle.
I guess.
I think that's supposed to be Aykroyd. I think they mentioned that he rides. So
okay, but you don't actually see like any of the funeral.
No, So for all I know, that's just something out of Road Warrior.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, really slowed down with like with like a rock playing, like a rock.
Oh
Bury your
man.
old comedians like a rock. I don't know. It's just this movie. God.
I'm so glad I'm able to laugh about it now with you, because when I was watching the movie, nothing about the if there were supposed to be funny parts to this movie, God, I didn't see them. Because when it's not being like mind-numbingly disturbing, like when he's on the operating table in the morgue and is being cut up by a guy who turns in and out of being a hibachi chef or whatever, or sushi
Yeah,
chef,
yeah.
it's like that's just messed up in general. And then let's talk about the faux SNL callbacks.
They're
Like,
awful.
because the whole thing was is that SNL wouldn't give the production rights to any of their actual sketches that they had done with Belushi. So all of his like iconic SNL moments are somehow retooled or reinterpreted to be something that they can shoot in the film. Like his samurai character, he's playing baseball now.
Yeah.
And God, he's like saying his like, Woodward at one point was like, I heard from Judith that Belushi, John used to do me, in the sense that he did like a Woodward sketch or something like that.
Because of course he did.
Of course,
Because Woodward has to be the central figure in John Belushi's life.
because being consultant on the movie, he gets
Yeah,
certain perks.
yeah, and apparently I don't know if it's true or not, but he said that he went to school with John Belushi.
Well, in the movie he states that like he graduated 6 years before John did,
Yeah,
or
but
something.
for some reason John would still do him.
But he talks about the sketch of Belushi as Woodward, like speaking very regally and Shakespearean like, to Aykroyd dressed up as a combination of Nixon and Beldar, which
Oh God, yeah.
which yeah, I don't think that ever really happened. But like, and that's supposed to be kind of, yeah, okay, this is recreating a classic SNL comedy moment. God help me, it wasn't funny.
and then beating them with a hammer. I mean, it's
Ay, ay, ay. Or the Elvis and Colonel Sanders cameos, which
yeah.
for the longest time, as soon as you see Elvis and Colonel Sanders in the dressing room and Elvis is like, live from New York, it's Saturday night, I'm like, this has been a sketch the whole time.
Yeah. I couldn't figure out if it was supposed to be a sketch or not, because when they're going down the hallway, I couldn't tell if they were acting like they were overacting because it was a sketch, or they were just overacting because they're shitty actors that miss their calling in porn.
And it was just hilarious how like it's so clear who was like, you can't use my likeness or my name or my likeness at all, because when he comes up with the contract and he's just saying like, did you make Chevy Chase sign this? Did you make Gilda Radner sign this contract as well? And is arguing with him. I'm like, yeah, where are Chevy and Gilda, by the way? It's like, you'd think they'd be kind of here for a rehearsal. And oh man, it's just so lame. Like it reminded me very much of that scene in Deadpool where Deadpool's like, funny how there's only 2 of you X-Men around at any given time. It's like you can't afford to have any of the other X-Men actors there. In this case, it's like, oh, it's like we can't afford to get anyone to agree to show up.
Yeah, I mean, everybody blackballed this thing with good reason.
It's terrible.
I mean, yeah, they would have done worse if they could have seen the dailies of this thing.
I mean, and here's the thing. I was born after Belushi's passing. But I watched his movies. I grew up. I liked Animal House quite a bit. I like Blues Brothers. I've never seen 1941.
It's
I'm
good.
curious. Yeah, I'm curious about it. Definitely. I've seen classic SNL stuff, and I like the guy just fine. I like that he's a performer. I'm not a diehard Belushi fan. I wasn't one of those guys who went to college and had that picture of Belushi chugging whiskey, that typical poster you would have in a dorm room
Yeah,
or anything like
yeah,
that.
with the collared shirt. Yeah.
Yeah, but as just a casual John Belushi fan, I was so angry at this movie. Like from the get go, I kind of went into it mad because I'd heard about stuff, I'd seen reviews about it, and yeah, it didn't look good from the get go. But I wanted to get the full movie to establish my own opinion in a way. Lord,
Yeah, I mean, I guess for us, it would have been, at least for me, because you're a bit younger than I am. But it would be if like Chris Farley, if they did the same thing to him.
who says they're dude? They're probably thinking right now. But that's the thing. Is like I feel this is the cautionary tale because at least certain biopics that have come out post Wired, whether they're historically accurate or factual, it's one thing, but there's some degree of reverence and respect for your source material and for your established kind of, historical figure in most of them. Like, take for example, on kind of a similar thing, Jim Carrey, Man on the Moon.
Yeah.
Whether that's historically accurate as to the actual happenings of the events portrayed in the film is one thing or another. I'm sure there's some liberties taken, there's exaggerations without a doubt, but you know what, at least they treated Andy Kaufman's story very even-handed. And you know what, at least for a good 99% of the movie, he's alive.
Well, the thing you should do with a biopic, because I mean, if you want like all the facts and everything, you try and you would find the book. You've only got like an hour and a half to 2 hours to show, what the person was like. So
Right.
you try and give like the flavor of this guy and what his life was like and what he was like, and that's all you really can do. Yeah, like Man on the Moon was what I thought really good because Andy Kaufman was a weird guy, and it showed him being a weird guy and kind of tried to go into why maybe, but not so much. But yeah, I mean, Wired is just like, look at this guy, he did drugs, he's dead now.
Yeah, it's not about portraying the character. I mean, whatever kind of characterization or depth is being presented in the movie, I owe entirely to Chiklis just making the most of the material. Like, I don't attribute it to writing at all because the writing is atrocious, but Chiklis's natural kind of charm and presence sells that stuff way better than if anyone else had the role. Because yeah, this is essentially a good hour and 40 minutes of shaming a dead guy for being a drug user after the fact. It's
yeah, with a kind of faux It's a Wonderful Life, and then some weird deathbed intervention. I mean,
it's unbelievably like mean spirited.
Yeah, I mean, I found some solace in like the weird side characters, like the weird dude who looked like Vanilla Ice in the bathroom who gave him coke, or the guy that I wrote down as butt-chinned man with Ric Flair hair.
Oh, which one was that?
He was the guy at the photo shoot.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was wondering if you're meaning Lou, who showed up with not what's his name, not Don Novello.
Yeah, he was just some dude later on in the film. Because I mean, I got through this because we were doing this, your chat, and I was gonna watch the whole movie.
Yeah,
but without that, yeah, I probably would have turned it off long before.
Yeah, I kind of had to force myself and not force myself to watch it in entirety and not want to skip around because honestly, like, yeah, it was mainly there were the quieter moments and the moments where it's just Chiklis on his own that were good, but honestly, just the Blues Brothers stuff was what I was gravitating towards, just because it's an incredible like physical recreation of their dynamic and their energy.
Yeah, they did a pretty good job on those. Yeah. The other ones were awful.
Oh yeah. The actual SNL stuff, it'll just go right over anyone's head who is familiar or not familiar with it. It's like, those who are familiar with early Saturday Night Live will be like, that doesn't make any sense. That never happened. And those of us who didn't grow up watching it will be like, that's not funny. Why is this guy a comedy legend again?
So it fails on both respects there as pertains to age group. It's like, yeah, it kind of blows.
And the fact that now that you do some research for yourself after the fact or before the fact too, and say like, yeah, by the way, there should have been a Robin Williams cameo at some point during that night.
Yeah.
Ed Begley Jr. should have been involved at some point.
Ed Begley Jr.
And which is weird because I don't know if have you ever seen the Mork and Mindy Lifetime movie biopic, whatever thing?
No.
It's on. I think it's on YouTube somewhere, but it's like the unauthorized, like true story behind Mork and Mindy. And the guy playing Robin Williams, I'll actually say he's a pretty good Robin Williams impersonator. But when that like direct to TV like schlock fest, when that portrays Robin Williams showing up at John Belushi's more accurately,
wow,
you have a problem. When when you have follow up of like people interviewing him, like when was the last time you saw him and everything like that. There's something's gone astray. Wired is all I can say.
Oh yeah. One last thing that I thought was kind of hilarious when I thought about it. When he's in the trailer after John Landis punches him in the face, and he's sitting there.
John who? Who are you talking about?
Yeah. Well, faux John Landis, I guess. but he's screaming that he needs his Coke. He needs his Coke, and I wrote, "Miss the Coca-Cola tie-in." Instead of just like handing him a Coke with the label out, like, "Hello, here you."
Oh no! But in this movie though, they do drop Pepsi.
Yeah, well,
they're at the diner. It's like, give me a cheeseburger with ketchup and a Pepsi. And then of course Angel's like, cheeseburger. You can use that apparently. Now, what I liked about not John Landis is how much it looked like what's his name, Adam Goldberg in like a fake beard, but also like my favorite line in the delivery of it is after he punches Belushi in the face. He's like, "My God, I just punched the star of my movie," like with that like emphasis and energy. I will admit, there's some really like what the fuck line deliveries in here.
Yeah, it's because none of them are really actors. I don't think. I mean, they scared all the better actors away from it because they were going to get blackballed.
Well, there's some Judith. I think her name's Lucinda Jenny. She's had a pretty lengthy career in movies and TV. Okay. JT Walsh, for all of his sins, survived this skewering and Wired. And of course, Chickless, of course, being the exception, he went on to be way, way above this material.
Yeah. Well, Chickless also, years later, the other Belushi, Jim. Yeah.
James, yeah.
Yeah, they met doing something really quick, and Chickless hugged him and said, "I'm sorry if I gave your family any pain." And that was the end of that.
Well, yeah, like I mentioned before, the fact that even people really close to John were at least saying like, you know what, this guy does a good job of representing the guy we knew. It's a shame he's surrounded by this shit story.
Yeah, and Bob Woodward's over there somewhere. I cannot believe that this guy wrote or co-wrote All the President's Men.
I can't believe that he was like that. Like he had to be involved in final approval. Okay, being like, okay, so he's gonna play a pinball game with this angel for his soul or his life or whatever. Sure, I'm all for that. Come on, Bob.
I don't know, man. I mean,
jeez.
But I mean, I have to say, like, from that soliloquy at the end, it's just. I hate this man. It just comes off as so friggin' pretentious. Yeah, pretentious. I can't even talk now. See,
well, that might have something to do with it. Like after especially after like stuff like Watergate, and he became kind of stepped out into the spotlight a little bit more. The celebrity is sometimes probably too tempting for certain personalities, and
I guess. I
You can
mean,
get so far up your own ass about your work. I
I can
guess.
just see like the real Woodward sitting behind the cameras going, no, louder, louder, space your words out a little more. It means more.
It's so yeah. His involvement in the movie for starters is messed up, but his investment in this story in the movie as a character, it's like I don't believe they were ever close. you know,
No.
the movie makes it up like he's got some kind of real personal investment in telling John's story. When it's probably
Yeah,
in real life, it was
and
like Judith came to him about like, "Hey, can you do this tell-all book in a way?" And he's like, "Sure." Can I?
and Dead John is like, yelling Woodward at the top of his lungs because he's gonna be exposed or something. And
Yeah, breathe for me, Woodward.
yeah, yeah.
That's his rosebud.
Oh God, that.
I know it's so weird because even like, what is it? I mean, there's so much stuff we can go over, but like when him and Angel are riding on top of that convertible and they see like Woodward talking to his former manager. He's just like, "Hey, there's Bob Woodward, Bob." He's like yelling at Bob. I'm like, Jesus. Even in death, apparently John Belushi is so hung up on Bob Woodward.
Yeah, he loves Bob Woodward. I mean, he's more the pinnacle of his life than anybody else in this movie.
Yeah, this is less of a love letter to John Belushi and his tragic but humorous life, and more about like the upstanding journalistic integrity of Bob Woodward.
And what he writes down in your bathroom.
Oh my God. A question I would pose to you is there have been rumors for a while, like you mentioned it before we even started, the rumors of kind of a return to a Belushi biopic in a way. I've heard rumors about Emil Hirsch taking on the role. You talked about this buddy comedy type of setup with Belushi and Aykroyd portrayed again in a fictional setting, or
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, that's I heard it was getting made. I don't know if it had dropped off, after what I read was written or not, but I'd be cool with it.
Mm-hmm.
Just don't make this movie again.
Yeah, yeah. It's like go the route of actually liking your main character.
Yeah, because that's a plus. Because if you don't like them, nobody else will.
It's like, or at least maybe not like him because it can go the opposite way and be overly complimentary and ass kissing and nepotism and what have you. But maybe to the point that it's like at least be kind of even handed with your portrayal. It's like show good times, you can show the harder times, but also don't get into just full on exploring the harder times because I'm fully convinced that at the end of this movie, John Belushi's soul went to hell, is what this movie's telling me.
Well, maybe, but you see the guy driving around the whole time, Angel.
Yeah.
I mean, he OD'd, and that's why he's driving him around. But he's supposed to be an angel.
So that's what happens to you.
I guess you got to drive people around in cabs after they wake up in the morgue. And
so if anyone has a near-death experience anytime soon and you were listening to this podcast, please reply back to us if you've had a near-death experience and if John
Belushi drives you around in a cab.
If he showed up in a cab to let us know. It has to be if you OD'd, apparently, because that's the specific kind of responsibility for you in the afterlife if you OD, is you drive a cab around. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, I don't even know. I mean, the starts out like being an expose, and then it turns into like their version of Raging Bull, and then it tries to be funny, and then it turns into a PSA, and it's all over the damn place, and none of it's good.
And then ends with a little Joe Cocker. So
yeah, because why not?
Which again, that's a scene that could have taken place anywhere. Like I didn't feel any resolution because I've got Chickless lovingly singing "You Are So Beautiful."
Oh, but that's still not the skit that they're ripping off.
Yeah, it's like, what was the?
I forget which Joe Cocker song it was, but it wasn't "You Are So Beautiful."
Ay, ay, ay. This one got my dander up quite a bit.
I mean, but adding Chickless, it makes me angrier because I mean, sure, it's his first role, and I don't blame him. But you've at least got a decent actor here
Mm-hmm.
in this piece of shit movie.
Oh,
If it
don't
was just
worry.
like completely shit, you could just like throw it out the window and be like, whatever.
Well, I know. I think he even went on saying it's like for 2 or 3 years he couldn't really get stable work and just did like guest appearances on things
Yeah, yeah.
until what was it, the
We got the
commish?
commish, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the commish. Yeah, and so good on him at least. It's like that's the one thing we can kind of salvage from this whole experience is that we got Michael Chiklis out of the doldrums of this and where he rightfully belongs in proper like movies and shows. Fantastic Four movies
Yeah.
standing. But I'll argue that he is probably one of the better things in the Fantastic Four movies.
Fair enough. I mean, man, there's a weird parallel here.
I mean, you have those people. Everyone's got to start somewhere. I'm sure. Like Jesus, Rocky Sylvester Stallone. He got started doing like softcore porn films. So it's
Yeah,
just
and
like,
then he did Rocky, and then he did what was that, Rhinestone?
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And who can forget Over the Top?
Oh yeah.
In fact, should that be something we should tackle for next time to maybe bring us up out of our doldrums? Something a little bit, it's stupid but lovable.
Let's go for a little bit more, I don't know, exploity, but not like this. Like
Yeah, this like
no.
some enjoyable exploitation, not like
Yeah,
I feel
there you
really
go.
bad for watching this exploitation.
You see, there's two kinds of exploitation, people. there's this, which is actual like character exploitation. This is like John Belushi. Yeah, he was a big guy in drugs. Let's make that into a feature film.
Let's make those as only defining characteristics.
And then you've got like things labeled exploitation, like Dolomite,
Which,
which is like one dude that just went out and made a movie. And whether you like it or not, it's this dude's movie.
Dolomite, eh? Should that be our next?
We could do that. Let's do the what was it, the Human Tornado?
That was a sequel, right?
Yeah.
Let's do the Human Tornado.
That sounds good.
This is gonna be fun. Rudy Ray Moore enthusiasts better watch out.
I love Rudy Ray Moore.
He's awesome. All right. Well, you've been listening to our very heated review of Wired here on McChats Live, youtube.com/MikeMcGTV. Again, a big thanks to Dan Baugher from 3 Geeks Podcast. I'm serious, man, when I'm saying like I didn't laugh, I wasn't able to laugh at any of the what the fuckery in this movie on my own. It wasn't until actually talking about it with somebody that I'm able to really kind of have a chuckle.
Oh, dude, you just have to like get darker than the movie.
Take myself to that place
Yeah, see?
where I feel like I'm dying in bed and Bob Woodward's looming over me.
Bob Woodward's yelling at you about your drug use you can't do shit about now. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Bob.
You're very helpful. It's like Captain Obvious,
Yeah. Could have known this, I don't know, 12 hours ago, but
Yeah.
Oh man. But thanks again, Dan. Check 3 Geeks Podcast out at youtube.com/3 Geeks Network. We'll be back sometime soon with the Human Tornado. Peace.
Bye-bye.